Before we begin the tips and tricks section, I just want to congratulate you on completing the subnetting portion of the course. Great job! So now let's take a look at some further exam taking tips and give you some shortcuts to get you subnetting faster and faster. So let's begin with some test taking tips. Now these are a bit of a no-brainer, but I wanted to state them just in case this is your first encounter taking a Cisco exam, which could be a bit intimidating. So first, before exam day, I would suggest you get plenty of rest and relax. Try not to cram all of your studying into one evening. Also make sure that you're hydrated on the day of the exam. The last thing that you want is to feel sleepy or can't think due to lack of hydration. Also, try to have a good breakfast. Maybe add some nice blueberries to your yogurt or cereal, as a diet with blueberries has shown to increase motor skills and help with memory in lab studies. As far as test taking tips, try to have a strategy for information you want to write down before taking the exam. Typically, before beginning the exam, there's no time limit. Take your time, prepare before starting. Write down any information you think you might need before beginning, because during the exam, time is precious. Lastly, although subnetting on the lab is important, a lot of your time is actually going to be devoted to working out the routing questions accessed through Cisco's virtual terminals and lab. That's why knowing how to subnet quickly is so important. You want to get through those subnetting questions quickly so that you can spend precious time working out those exam labs. As far as subnetting tricks, in my humble opinion, there's so much to learn for the CCNA exam that having to remember numbers that don't change and that you can simply write out before the exam, to me, is a no-brainer. So I would start out with writing a good chart. And the reason I love this chart is because it's so flexible. You can perform so many operations. Now the one we've used throughout the course is displayed here, but of course feel free to create one that suits you best. To make the chart, you can start with the powers of 2, write them from right to left, starting from 1, and just double the result. Now I would stop at 128, seeing that this is the set of blocks also that represents the subnet mask and the number of bits in our 3 octets. Then I would write out the subnet mask in decimal, while remembering that as you turn on bits from left to right in your subnet mask, you're simply converting the number from binary to decimal form, and that you can simply add up the corresponding power of 2 positions from your powers of 2 block above. Lastly, you can write out all the bits of the octets. When subnetting, this would be your magic octet. Meaning, if you're looking at subnetting a /9 through a /16, you're always subnetting in the second octet. /17 through a /24 is the third octet, and a /25 through 32 is the fourth octet. Keep in mind also that when you turn bits into subnet bits, your number of networks increase by the power of 2, and your hosts lessen. This rule is also true when increasing the number of host bits by the powers of 2, the number of subnets lessen. Also, while subnetting, make sure that you're aware of the pitfalls. Remember that you can subnet legacy class A or B networks into the third and fourth octet. When this happens, be sure that you're incrementing appropriately and exhausting an octet's network or host address space before incrementing the adjacent octet. For example, if I'm subnetting a class B network and I'm using a subnet mask of /28, this makes my increment of 64 in the fourth octet and 1 in the third octet. So that makes my network addresses 0.0, 0.64, 0.128, 0.192, and then my third octet turns to 1, making my network 1.0, 1.64, 1.128, and so on and so forth. Lastly, and probably the most important, is understanding your multiples. For example, during the exam, you'll have a lot of questions asking you where a certain IP falls within a specific network boundary. This can take a lot of time if you have to write out all the networks for an increment of 8, for example 0, 8, 16, 24. But by using the chart, you can locate the closest multiple to narrow down your location. For instance, 128 is a multiple of 16 and 8. So you can virtually eliminate the need to search through half of the network space by using the chart. If you don't wish to use a chart, however, I would suggest at the minimum you memorize the powers of 2 and the decimal numbers of the subnet mask so you can easily know your network increment and subnet and then quickly continue from there. In addition to my tips, there are lots of resources online. Because we've used IPv4 for so long and still do to this day, there's many good places to get great information. Now, for me, I would start with the Cisco site. Here they give you lots of great diagrams and tutorials. It's a great resource if you're studying or a new network administrator. Also, take a look at Wiki University. There you can find some great resources and additional videos if you want to explore some other aspects of networking in addition to subnetting. Another great site that I like to look at is easysubnetting.com, and there you can find a listing of up-to-date charts and diagrams, as well as links to other tutorials and subnetting practice question sites.